With VeChain's recent pullback, should we be concerned? Is this the end for VeChain's bull run, or is this still looking to continue to the upside? I am incredibly bullish on VeChain, and in this video, I'm going to go through the technical analysis on VET. If you find this video useful and informative, hit that like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe? Tap that bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Right, with that said, done, and out of the way, let's dive down into the charts here for VeChain and take a look at exactly what has been going on. Okay, we're just going to give a quick overview to the weekly chart, then dive down into the daily and hourly. But basically, there are 5 impulse waves to the upside. Many of you guys will know and be familiar with this if you're new to the channel. Then basically, there are 5 impulse waves to the upside, starting back in March of 2020. Wave 3, which is the recent kind of all-time high for VeChain, was set on the, I think it was like week commencing the 12th of April, right? And again, that was up there nice and high at 27.9 cent. Okay, so significant progress was made from March to April, a 399-day move that was 18,295% in gains. There was a pullback for wave 4. Again, this is always a pullback correction wave along with wave 2. Wave 2 was flat, so wave 4 was sharp. And what you actually saw here was a good bottom in May. Then we started a good progress to the upside in August, month of September, so self-fulfilling prophecy of expecting a pullback, creating the pullback, and causing it ourselves. And then obviously now we're looking to heat things up and move to the upside for wave 5. Wave 5 comes in at $1.01, and that is based on the performance of wave 3 and wave 4. Taking those two things into consideration, you get the Fibonacci retracement tool, and the extension of the 4.236 comes in at $1.01. That is 850% from the current position, and something I do think is likely to occur. Okay, but obviously this you don't move in straight lines, and everything is usually full of waves. And what you actually find is there's natural corrections on the journey to the upside. We can take a look at wave 1. We can see that there were corrections in the middle of this wave before we even peaked out with wave 1. The same thing was occurring here in wave 3. Now, what we've got here is basically an unusual piece of activity where September was actually a pullback month. It was a correction month, as it is every single year. And here you can see where it is in wave 2, right? It was a correction wave when we had the September pullback. Now, what we actually have here is starting wave 5 in August, but actually having that pullback in the middle. Okay, so again, it's very frustrating, but again, very natural, considering it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. We all knew it was coming, we all caused it, and there it is, right? So we are, of course, looking to have this push to the upside overall. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump down into our daily. Okay, now we have a good idea that the structure of the weekly is looking pretty good. It's intact. We can take a little bit more of a detailed look at our third and fourth waves, and obviously going into that fifth wave, right? So this daily chart here shows us the Fibonacci retracement tool. It shows us the peak of wave 3, and this was the 17th of April. We have the low area, again, of this Fibonacci retracement tool on the 19th of May, right? So we take that high and that low, and if you actually get those extension levels coming in here, the 4.236 comes in at $1.01, okay? The 1.618 is at 42 cents, the 2.618 comes in at 64 cents, the 3.618 comes in at 87 cents, okay? So overall, everything's looking pretty good. The fifth wave, I've put it up there at the 4.236 extension, coming in at $1.01. That is, of course, 850% from the current position. Now, the other thing that's really important that we have to acknowledge is all of this recent trading activity of what has been going on with VeChain. Now, obviously, we had that significant pullback taking us down to these low areas, the bouncing that would have occurred, taking us up to new areas, and then obviously we went down and we were setting some higher lows on this journey, and we've continued to do so. But obviously, we've had a pullback back down towards our 236 area on the charts. Now, we'll get into why I'm not concerned over this overall, and that is pretty much, you know, something that we're going to get into later, but it's all looking like pretty good moves to the upside overall, and we just have to kind of experience a little bit of volatility. Now, the recent pullback that we've seen with VeChain, it is not just VeChain. Pretty much all altcoins, with the exception of a few, have been pulling back. Money is actually rolling around the space right now. It is not actually leaving the space. It isn't. We're not having new money coming in right now. We're basically just seeing investors moving their money around, chasing the green candles, right? Some profits have been taken from VeChain recently, etc. Right? But many altcoins are experiencing a very similar pullback, and a lot of these altcoins that are experiencing these pullbacks also have some underlying issues, and I'm going to get into that in a moment as well. Okay, so it's not unusual, and it's not just VeChain either, right? So the other thing on this daily chart I do want to kind of talk about is some of the really bullish stuff that you can see in these patterns, where it is, of course, that cup and handle we've been talking about recently. Here's your cup, here's your handle, and this then projects us moving up to 22 cent. Okay, so the cup and handle is a really bullish pattern. They're about 60 to 70% accurate, so they don't always come true, but if they actually start to actually have a good run and complete this pattern, then we're aiming for 22 cent here, which puts us firmly between the 702 and the 786 area on the chart. So lots of really good progress could be made just based on this cup and handle pattern. Okay, obviously this recent pullback is a little bit frustrating. We are still trading sideways between two key areas. We're not going to get into those charts in a moment to see whether or not we are looking to pull back any lower, or whether or not we are going to basically break this and start to move back to the upside. Okay, so things are definitely looking pretty good from the cup and handle perspective. We have the cup and handle, and of course, you know, everything else that's going on in the space. We have the Fibonacci retracement tools, we have the 5 impulse waves to the upside, and everything's looking pretty good from that perspective. Now, obviously, we can acknowledge there could be an ABC correction wave just here, and again, that could take us down into our buy zone, which is this yellow box area at the bottom. And if that does, that's going to be another opportunity that we've only had a handful of times before, down here, here, and here, to actually buy up a significant portion of VeChain before we actually go ahead to the upside. Now, I'll probably do a whole member video on the buy zones for VeChain in the coming days, so do pay attention to that if you are a member. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to jump over to the advice.io dashboard, and we're going to take a look at that underlying data for VeChain. Is there anything that we should be concerned with? Now, guys, if you're not familiar with advice.io, links in the description below. Advice.io, they use artificial intelligence and machine learning to help us understand the underlying value of cryptocurrencies in an unbiased way. This platform, this artificial intelligence, has been right more times than I can count, and it is completely free. So do seriously, guys, check it out. Sign up below from the link below, and you're going to be able to get a lot more clarity around what's going on with your cryptocurrencies than you would normally get just from the charts. So in this particular example, we've got B3 rating for VeChain overall, and we can come down and we can get into a little bit more detail over what is going on when it comes to to VeChain, right? So we have a fear and greed index that's a C3. So there's extreme fear in the market. And again, this is not limited just to VeChain, but VeChain's fear and greed index is indicating that there is extreme fear and people are incredibly concerned about the future of VeChain. Now, that is not something that I am concerned with. Obviously, with the amount of things actually going on in the world with VeChain, it's hard to think that you'd ever be concerned with the progress or the future of VeChain. This is actually one of the projects that I sleep easy on because it has so many real-world integrations by absolute behemoth companies that are not China-based either. Okay, there's lots of work that happens in China. That's because they're very, very close to China, but not a Chinese company. And of course, VeChain has integrations worldwide with absolute massive companies and organizations that would basically dwarf pretty much most other kind of blockchain technologies and their partnerships and their kind of progress. VeChain has absolutely solid track record, and it's the only 5-star blockchain service provider in the world, which has huge implications from a business and enterprise adoption level. So everything that VeChain is doing is absolutely fantastic, and therefore I find this unreasonable amount of fear in the market for VeChain. It's a bit of an odd one. And again, I do think that this is down to lots of FUD misinformation around what VeChain is and what VeChain isn't. So again, I think it's important that people actually open up and actually dive into the truth of VeChain rather than just believing some absolute nonsense that you see out there. That being said, do some more research if you're not actually understanding exactly what VeChain is, and hopefully you will actually come out on the other side looking much better. As we come down, of course, we can see that VeChain, the AMI-HAD ratio, is a rating of D, another problem that is plaguing many of these altcoins in the space right now. This is liquidity. Liquidity seems to be a problem. It could be 1, 2, or 3 different exchanges that are causing some potential withdrawals or deposit issues for VeChain. And as a result, this could actually have a pretty compound effect to your fear and greed index. If there are problems with liquidity, you can bet that that's going to cause a little bit more fear in the space as well. Again, I don't know what the problem is. It's been plaguing the space for a few weeks now, and I'm really interested to know what is causing such liquidity-based problems for so many altcoins, and whether or not there is manipulation at play. Definitely something I'm concerned about, but not as a long-term holder, but only as a short-term price action. Overall, the liquidity, I think, is going to get resolved, and once it does, we should be off again, looking for some pretty good traction to the upside. As we come down, we have a Sharpe ratio, an A2, the second best rating that this platform can give. Well above that 50-day average right now. The Sharpe ratio is indicating that the rewards outweigh the risks. And when we couple this Sharpe ratio with the fear and greed index, you get something that's quite unusual. We have a position where the rewards outweigh the risks, but people are willing to sell their VeChain at a discounted rate. That is indicating to me that that's the kind of fear that you might want to be buying up. Of course, I'm not a financial advisor, nor is Chris, so it's important that you do your own research. Use the advice.io platform, use the charts, and trying to draw your own conclusions and understand where things are going. But when I have a Sharpe ratio in front of me that's showing an A2 and a fear and greed index showing a C3, that is basically telling me buy that fear because things are looking pretty good longer term. And as we come down, we have profitability up at an A1, and again, why not, with 18,295% in gains in 399 days. That is a very significant return on investment, much higher than things like Bitcoin with only 1,600%, with Ethereum in the same time period only 5,100%. So VeChain has outperformed many of these major cryptocurrencies, including Cardano. Okay, so it's important that we obviously acknowledge these things, and obviously it hasn't even finished its bull run yet. Things are going to get really, really parabolic towards the end of this bull run, and VeChain is going to absolutely pop to the upside. There, of course, are concerns with the moving averages. This is a C2 rating. And again, that's understandable considering everything that's been going on in the month of September. So overall, a B3 rating is pretty good. It's neutral, but it is on the cusp of bad. And we should be expecting some volatility considering the 𝗕𝗓 ratio and, of course, that fear and greed index. Long term, though, the profitability being an A1 and the Sharpe ratio being in your favor, I think we're looking pretty good. So when we come back to the chart, we obviously have that cup and handle, and the cup and handle indicating that we should move to 22 cent. That's going to be something that I think is going to probably be later in the month or beginning of November by the time we actually get up to that kind of traction or to that level. And that's just because we haven't got the right sentiment in the space and we have got those liquidity-based problems. When we jump down into our hourly view, this is where we start to see a lot more of that volatility, right? We had a good break to the upside where we were trying to find this. Well, here's the break to the upside, right? We broke the downward trend. We moved rapidly to the upside, found that resistance, trying up here to reach, to 12.3 cent. And then we've pulled back, crashing through a lot of these resistance levels. This is really unusual. And we can start to see that we just haven't had the sentiment to push back up. And we found resistance at 11.5. We crashed through 11. And we also went past 10.7, which was unusual. This is an area I thought was absolutely going to hold for us. But by the time we actually got there, we bounced from it, and then we've started to basically free fall again. And if we actually jump back down into here, we can basically see that the volumes that are coming through are just selling. It's almost like there's liquidity-based problems are for purchasing only right now, which is really, really odd. Which is, if you're shorting Bitcoin, I'm sure you're probably doing fine. But if you're going long right now, they're probably trying to liquidate you in some way, or something is going on in the background here around those liquidity-based problems. With the stochastic RSI being where it is, we have the opportunity to push up to about 10.7, but I think if we actually really review it, the chances are that we are more than likely going to come. Actually, it's a reasonable area of support. Let me just grab that horizontal ray and throw that there. So we can see that this is a reasonable area of support. It was a previous area of resistance just over this side here. So that one actually comes in at 10.3, right? So looking at where we are, if we can actually push up towards our 10.7, and then go and find 10.3 as a support line. We might trade this until we can break to the upside, but obviously I have to be aware that we could also pull back to 9.8. Okay, so if this continues to the downward side, then that's what we should be expecting. We're waiting for money, or new money, or just people to roll back into VeChain right now and some of these other altcoins. At the moment, it looks like money's rolling into Bitcoin instead, chasing those green candles. and chasing Bitcoin to move up. Obviously, from a percentage yield point of view, Bitcoin is not going to perform very well. So I'm hoping that people eventually do understand that it doesn't really matter about the dollar level or the actual value of a cryptocurrency. It only really matters about the percentage gains that you actually make. So what would you rather, 1,600% on Bitcoin or 18,000% on Vechain? Those are the differences, right? So it does look like people are rolling out of these altcoins, putting into Bitcoin. You can see that in the dominance with Bitcoin dominance rolling up and the altcoin dominance dropping down. And yet the actual total market capitalization across the entire space is pretty static. So money is just rolling around the space rather than actually new money coming in. So one to be watchful of. I think this volatility is going to be very, very short. I think it's going to be over pretty quickly, and then everything's going to be moving right back to the upside in a really rapid way towards the end of October. Overall, everything's looking pretty good long term for Vechain. So if we are ever in doubt, we do zoom out. We pay attention to what is going on with Vechain on that weekly chart where we started this whole video, and this gives you a pretty good structure of where things are going. It's important that we don't get too focused in on all of those smaller time frames. The structure of the weekly chart is looking very good, and we are continuing that growth to the upside overall. Guys, I'm going to leave the video there. If you have found it useful and informative, hit that like button. I really do appreciate that. If you happen to be new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe? Tap that bell, select all notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with absolutely everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. With this said, done, and out of the way, I hope everyone has a fantastic day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.